Uh, yeah, so just make yourself comfortable. I'm going to read from probably one of my all-time favorite books about the body, A Handbook for Body Work, Job's Body. And what I like about this book and why I've been reading it for so many years, I also had the opportunity to study with Dean years ago, is that it's really a lovely combination between, it's very poetic, it's very nuanced, and it can also be very technical. So he merges these things together quite nicely. And this is just beautiful. I'm just going to read you a very small section from this larger chapter. And it's so alluring. The first sentence starts out, a successful relationship with reality. So how can one resist that? Yes. A successful relationship with reality must be learned as a dance is learned, not by contemplation, but by participation, by an exertion of will, by movement, action, and response. In order to derive strength from God and the angels, it is necessary to enter into active contact with them, to push against them with our muscles and feel them with our senses. We are formed not by abstract laws, but by the intimacies of a wrestling match, where we struggle with universal forces and we begin to feel our individual forces grow in relation to them. Force must be met by force, and the structure evolves as the forces are balancing. The one quality that is outstanding in all our organs and tissues, almost no matter in what shape we find them, is their great plasticity. Flesh is a highly malleable thing, constantly shifting its depository layers between the demands of the internal and the external environments. And this plasticity does not function within narrowly defined limits. It is radical. It has produced millions of species from the same basic protoplasm, and it can turn out any one of hundreds of possible individuals from the same genetic code. We are not at all like billiard balls, bits of mechanistic matter that react in singular and predictable ways to singular and measurable forces. Living form responds in ways that are often not predictable to forces that are often not measurable. Nature does not simply pile together forms and forces until they add up to life. Life is a process that assumes form and then assumes alternatives, constantly creating solutions to constantly shifting conditions. This primordial molding matter is neither solid nor fluid. It is both. It is just sufficiently solid to keep a form it assumes and just sufficiently fluid to change to some other form at need. Like putty, we are either shaping ourselves or we are drooping. Like clay, we either keep ourselves moist and malleable or we are drying and hardening. And now the meditation of yoga. Okay, so work your way up, please, and get yourself a number of things. Let's see, it depends on what height you want to go to. So I'm going to just have to disturb this little kitten for a moment and get this blanket. Whoa, sorry. To disturb a resting kitty should be a law. So you can take a blanket and you can fold it over a couple of times to have something to put your leg up on. We're actually going to put the left leg up on it. Yeah. You could use the small bolster. You have a small bolster. or you could even use a large bolster. So I'm just going to leave it up to your discretion on how high you want to angle this leg. We're going to come into a forward bend here, and it's very interesting in how the angle of the leg coming up affects a combination of things on this side. So feel free to go a little higher or go a little lower. And actually, when I did it, I folded this blanket over so it was a little higher. So I folded it up, yeah, like this, which was just perfect for me this afternoon. So what I would like you to do is just take the right leg and fold it in front of you, and then take that left leg and set it up on your bolstering, whatever you happen to be using. So even this, a little bit of height of the blanket, it's almost equal to the small bolster, will be significant to come into this, like I said, this left side. So set that up, make sure the hips are nice and relaxed, and then come into the forward bend very, very slowly. This is always our recommendation, is to just feel your way in, and then acknowledge the weight of the torso and the head and the shoulders. And then if you need something forward to lean on, this is always a good thing to consider, so you're not forcing into it or compressing too deeply. You want to find your own personal equilibrium between where you hover, so you can sink in and relax, and you can maintain the the focus on how the discomfort might be trying to get your attention. So a lot of little things going on. So slowly and subtly, quietly, and with just great care to come into the body in this way, and then to just settle. So you're not having to move around too much or readjust too much, but to find a place that everything can just settle. And the first thing we do is we just quiet down and come into a still, quiet internal place. And this, reading that I just shared with you is really precisely what we're doing in this approach to our body. This particular yoga is exploring the balance of the body being as solid as it needs to be and as fluid as it needs to be, understanding this dynamic of plasticity and how it's always changing and shifting. So this is, basically what Dean was saying is your body from moment to moment and day to day, nothing is set, nothing is, set in stone. The idea of plasticity, the dynamic of plasticity, is that things have a great ability, a great intelligence to change. So we're kind of using, where does it feel fluid, and we can also call this openness and a sense of flow and a sort of energetic connection, and where does it feel overly solid, and this may feel a little blocked or a little restricted or dense. So this is an internal dance that is unique to each and every one of you. So this is why we want to have just a quiet place. So this is what we're contemplating. How does my physical body feel at this level? And part of the deepening that we cultivate is just allowing the, typically incessant, internal dialogue to just quiet down a bit and allow just the the feelings of the sensations. How do your sensations feel? Sort of the language of the body at just the level of pure sensation. So we're not trying to shut the mind down, certainly, but to just let that internal dialogue quiet a bit. Notice how much of it is just not really relevant to what you're doing or feeling, and relax more into a somatic, visceral place in the body. And this doesn't happen typically very quickly. It's just part of the ongoing slowing down of the practice, slowing down into the body, a sense of just relaxing and just trusting that the information comes from just such a variety of places in the body mind that we really can't even catalog them all. Okay, so let's come on up from here. And I'd like to keep going a little bit here. So, well, maybe more than a little bit, but let's remember we hopefully have the left leg in front, and then open both legs out. You can remove that, whatever you have for bolstering, for a moment. So we just stretch both legs out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bend the right leg. So we had the left leg on top in front. We're going to put the right leg in front, and we're going to just try to scoop that left leg around back to come into a swan position. So don't force it. It doesn't not need to be straight. You don't need to force this left hip by any means. And two things you can do. You can bring some pillows or a bolster up front if you want to relax over them. And if the hips are feeling particularly torqued or tight, you can take a blanket or a smaller bolster and put it under the right buttocks. Yeah, so this just evened out my hips and released a lot of the tension. And then ultimately, we're just going to try to fold forward. So if this is too challenging, just come over a blanket, come over a pillow, a bolster. So sometimes it's nice to start this way. And if the body releases enough, then you can just relax down to the floor. Again, let the back leg be intuitive where you place it. It'll just depend on the angling of your hips. The front leg can either be at 90 degrees to the body. This is a level of stress on the right knee, yes. You could bring that foot way in. This relieves some stress on the knee. Or you could go beyond 90 degrees, and this will stress the knee even more. So I have no suggestion there. Really listen to what your knee likes. And then just relax down into this and just feel the compression wherever you feel it. For me, it's very much about hips and a few other places, but we're certainly aware of all of the skeletal variations here. So one of the very beautiful things about cultivating this approach to the body, this slow, intuitive, lacking any specific body alignment, is that you can continue to develop this for your entire life. And as a matter of fact, the more you do it and the older you get, it works so well as the body starts to dehydrate and tighten. So it's really meant to be done in an ongoing way and consistently. And it's very interesting if we look at yoga. I've been thinking about this lately because yoga, it was a very, very ancient system that it's a science that was received simply to look at the nature of reality in terms of how our experience is that there are many, 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 many things, and we seem to be separate from them. We seem to think that there's an object out there, a thing, and then there's a subject in here, me. And so this becomes just a quintessential conflict. All of these things, and then there's me. All of these people, and then there's me. All of these situations, and then there's me. Yoga is a system, is a way of looking at reality, a way of exploring to see that all of these things are really made up of the same stuff. The same stuff that I am made of, that you are made of, that this pure, universal, infinite oneness of consciousness is what we are. We're all conscious. And then things appear in the field of consciousness. So this is the exploration. The exploration is to begin to recede more into this state of I am simply conscious. And then notice what appears in you being conscious and how it's changing. This appears and it changes. This arises and it fades. This seems very real and then it dissolves. So fundamentally, this is the yoga. The yoga is just to be conscious, to directly experience that you are conscious, and then to observe the power of the witness. The cultivating and the power of the witness is very, very strong medicine. And then to see, yes, everything is a bit like a movie. It's unfolding, it's coming and going, it's unfolding, it's coming and going. But the fact that I'm conscious remains. And the yoga is the observing of that the many, the objective world, and oneself all are arising from the same thing. Yoga. So let's come on up from this position and do so very slowly. It's nice first to come to your palms and then slowly start to straighten your elbows a bit and see if you can just kind of press into your low back a little bit, and have some movement in the shoulders. Good. And then when you feel ready, then you can bring that back leg around so you're sitting front. And we'll just prepare to move on before we rest. So what I would like you to do is get a blanket and fold it in the shape of one of those small yoga blocks. So this is a fairly significant blanket, so you want a little bit of heft to it. But whatever you have will work. So I'm folding it over and over, and then my final fold just turns into a nice pad. Yeah, so a nice square, not exactly square, but square enough. So something approximating this, and it's about, if you have a big bolster, it's about the height of the bolster, but I'm not going to use the bolster. I'm going to invite you to use the pad, just a little different. And then maybe something for your head, because we're going to lean over it. The shoulders are going to be over it. So blanket or towel or something to lean over, and then just sit in front of it. So sitting in front of it, and keep the feet on the floor so you support the spine as you're coming down, and just place this pad under the, mostly the mid back. So it's pretty much under my sternum at this point, and you can see my shoulders can definitely come over it. Yes, we don't want the shoulders on. I can even go down a little lower. You have some leeway here because it's soft. You can have the shoulder blades on it. You can be a little below the shoulder blades. Try to keep any pinching or pulling out of the lower spine. They'll obviously, it's connected. There'll be a little something there. And then support your head. If you'd like to dangle your head, you could, but it's nice to have something. So again, we can stay over a longer period of time and it doesn't become a concern for the neck. Let the arms relax out, let the legs then relax out, and we'll just be right in this position. And then if it's a little too intense, you can unfold the blanket a bit. If you want to go a little bit higher, you could actually go, you could go higher than this. You just put another blanket on it, or maybe put the small bolster underneath it. So ways to pad up and ways to come down. And let me say this again, that awakening and empowering the witness is very powerful medicine. And this is one of the, the enduring strengths of yoga, is that we're not being asked, any of us, to take anything at face value or secondhand. The self-inquiry is just that. It's an inquiry of the nature of oneself. So if we stay involved with the conditioning of the mind, if we stay involved with the the internal dialogue, and just at that level, at that level, then we don't have the opportunity to discover this powerful dynamic of witnessing, this powerful dynamic of observing these dynamics. So in a way, we're going behind the mind, if you will. So the chatter, the internal dialogue, the opinions, the little triggers that come and go, this is just this is the surface. This is the choppiness. But going behind the mind, we can see there's a quietness there. There's a softness there. There's an opening to sit with this presence that is contemplating all of this, that is observing all of this, that's witnessing all of this. And so for the purposes of our yoga, for the purposes of our self-inquiry, this is where we want to rest, behind the mind as the witness. At any point, we can use a position like this with the expanded midsection and the stretching of the diaphragm to breathe deeply and breathe slowly, but to also, as you're doing this and you're feeling this, just the miraculousness of your breathing, to really make sure you're cultivating a deep respect for the breath. Beyond all of the techniques that we can use for breathing and the micro movement of the body and all the mechanics of the breathing, the essential thing with our yoga is to really cultivate a deep respect for our breathing, to sit with it almost with a sense of reverence, that this is as close to our life force. This is our life force that we're getting to feel, and how mysterious it is, and how incredibly grateful we can be that we are able to take yet another breath and yet another breath. And really, how often do we really take the time Do we slow down enough to let everything relax into the breath? So the breath doesn't stick to anything. The breath has no agenda. The breath simply allows you to be animated and alive. So any stress of the mind, let it relax into the breathing. Any stress in the heart, let it relax into the breathing. Any physical stresses, let it soften into the breath. This also would be a nice time, if you're able to, just to bring the arms up over the head. And you can do it very, sort of casually and intuitively, or you could interlock the fingers and try to stretch out the elbows. So just as you start to move the arms, just be guided by how your shoulders are responding, how your spine might be lengthening. It's also, this movement is also nice to uh, bring us into the entire articulation of the spine. You just sort of visualize that even though we're compressing into this mid section, that certainly we're able to discern that lower spine through the mid up into the neck and the shoulder area, and just all of these words that separate the body, but we can feel indeed that it is not separate. It is a bit solid, it is a bit fluid, and in between there is this incredible intelligence of plasticity, its capacity and willingness to change. So if you have the arms over the head, you can relax them. Maybe take a few even deeper breaths if you've got away from the slow, deep breathing, and just stretch actually the ribs. So breathe till you feel resistance and then breathe in a little bit more, and then hold it and just feel the opening in the rib cage, the expansion of the lungs, and then just let it all expel, and do that a couple of more times. So using the breath to, again, now evoke micro movement into the body, and just feel that. Good. And then you can put your feet on the floor, bend your knees, and roll off of this to, it doesn't matter what side, whatever side you're drawn to. And we'll just rest on your side for a bit. So go nice and slow. It is good to curl up because this is a bit of a gentle forward bend. So whatever feels best. You could even come into a child's pose if you like, just something to counter this lengthy mid-spine compression. And then we'll take a couple of moments here, not a long rest, but just a bit to relax, and then we'll do the other side of that forward. Okay, so when you're ready, come on up and again, choose a height for this right leg this time. And it does not have to be the same thing. Sometimes it's very nice to use the same thing and have a bit of a bit of symmetry, but the way that the body's holding tension, it's certainly not necessary. So, I showed it with this folded blanket. If indeed I wanted to, I could do the other side with a big bolster, or the blanket and a small bolster, or two blankets. So maybe I will do that to show it. So this time the left leg is going to get folded in front of you. This is just a supported square pose. Most of you know it. And then the right leg will come on top of whatever you're using, whatever height you choose. And then the forward bend is the same. And the commitment to moving slowly and with great delicacy and great sensitivity is the same. Relaxing the weight of the head, relaxing the shoulders, slowing down when you start to feel restriction and resistance and density, and just allowing your body to just very naturally and organically descend inward. And if you're not quite sure what I mean by going behind the mind, that's a good thing. You're not supposed to really understand it. So what we are playing with here is, are you able to experience your body without this dialogue, without this dualistic intellect, without the running commentary? So if you let that relax, if you let that just be, if you disengage from that, can you still experience your body? And it's at this level of experience, it's this level of being conscious of, it's this level of awareness that then starts to permeate, and we start to see that, oh yes, the dialogue is just a mechanism, just like the body, just like all of these feelings, just like the world. So we start to cultivate this inner, quiet, expansive, ever-present place of consciousness. And then this is also, we could call this going behind the mind, because the mind is just one of the many things appearing in and disappearing from this consciousness. And always trying to remember, sort of like always a background echo, that however relaxed you are, you can always relax a bit more. So scan and allow your awareness to drift through the body and see, can you relax? Is there, even if nothing moves, and typically it won't, this can just be a gentle softening. Maybe again, letting that internal dialogue drift away for a bit, come more into the body. Whatever it is, it's not a technique. It's just an intuitive a deepening of the relaxation. That it's never a static place. However much we feel relaxed, always we can relax a bit more and a bit more. Good. So let's come on up from here. And we'll do the same thing as we did before. We'll take the bolstering away and just straighten out these legs for a moment. We're going to do the other side of the swan position. So this time we're going to start bending the left leg, because we went the opposite way the last time. So again, very simple position to get into, very lovely position to get into. We'll bend this left leg in front of us. I'm sort of angling a bit here for space, and we're going to push this right leg back. And then the angling of this front leg, again, with the position of the knee. So a lot of times it's nice to bring it in, maybe bring it 90 degrees, it's up to you. And then again, if you want something under the left buttocks, this takes some pressure off the hips. You need something to initially lean on to work your way into it, or even for the whole pose, doesn't matter. Just make sure you relax the leg. Or if you're able to, just drape over this. So we have the upper body draping over this left leg. This provides a lot of the compression into the hip and the IT band and the piriformis, and then just relax over it as best you can. And often all we need to do is give ourselves this message that we can relax a bit more and relax a bit more. this understanding of plasticity that I shared earlier, and this relationship between being solid and being fluid, this is precisely why, on a practical level, that we apply this compression. So the application of the compression of stressing into areas of the body, this is opening up pathways, basically opening up neural pathways, energetic pathways, physical pathways. So the body itself can then find this equilibrium between solidity and fluidity. This is how the cells, the tissues, the neural network, the circulatory system responds by feeling the compression, by opening spaces, squeezing out toxins, opening blockages. So that it's just an in and out. It's almost like massaging. In a way, that's what it is. So this is why we want the compression to be appropriate to you, to be just right, so we can also relax, because too deep and we contract and the body goes into a brace or a protection mode, this dynamic is not going to happen. So always better to put the ego aside and what the pose looks like, how deep I am in, what bolsters I'm using, and bring the body into a position where it can feel the compression, but it can also relax and receive it. And it's very intuitive that way. It can change from day to day, week to week, posture to posture. So we don't want to superimpose any limits on the body or an aesthetic on the body. We want to feel it as directly, somatically as we can, a direct sort of contact with the visceral sense of how it's feeling, and let that feeling guide us, not what we think should be happening, because quite frankly, we don't know what's happening. Good. So let's begin to drift up a bit here. And again, my recommendation is to just go to the palms and slowly straighten the elbows. This will bring you into a bit of a backward bend, and then just a little movement, a little swaying, a couple of oohs and ahs maybe, ay-ay-ay's, whatever is appropriate. And then when you feel like you're ready, we can bring that back leg around and then just straighten both legs, and we'll lie down, and we will take a longer rest now since we've completed this sequence. So just make yourself comfortable. And we will rest. one of the things that I'll often do, really more for the sake of exploration, and obviously, using the limitation of language, is to focus on our yoga really just as flow. How does our flow feel in terms of our energy in and out, our light and love in and out, and separate that from, in some way, there's overlaps, but separate it from a therapeutic process and a spiritual practice, and just feeling this sense of directness and this mystery of the body. And one of the reasons that I think it's important is because when we start to directly feel this, first of all, how mysterious the body is, in that, what we basically do very little. We give it some food, and we give it some fluids, and we give it some exercise, some sunshine, and it's pretty much good. And everything below the surface is pretty much taking care of itself. It's tremendously wise that way. So to start to trust that and feel that, yes? And then we can take that flow and then we can apply it. We can, if we really start to see what we're trusting, the nature of this trust, then we are less likely to get drawn into having to figure everything out, having to be concerned about the outcome of all the circumstances, all the situations in our life. So we start to develop this trust by first and foremost trusting the body, trusting the wisdom of the body, because this is what's closest to us. So we get to this place where instead of having to go right up to the mind, go right up to our belief systems, go right up to what we've read, what someone else told us, what we think should be happening, what our culture thinks should be happening, we just step back from that and trust. And however, in whatever way life is unfolding, we just trust that we can be loving and intelligent. And this is innate. This is innate in every single one of our cells. This is innate in the breathing, thinking, feeling body, that we are loving and we are intelligent. So we don't have to plan ahead of time. We don't have to figure everything out. We don't have to hold all this anxiety and these preconcerns. We can just trust that whatever is unfolding, I am loving and I am intelligent, and I will allow that to guide me. And it's a beautiful way to hold our yoga. This is our flow. Our flow is just to be able to relax and enjoy life. And when it seems challenging and it seems scary, we don't have to contract and we don't have to be afraid. We can go back to this trust. So the trust is, I'm intelligent and I'm loving. Let me go there first. Let me apply that and then see what happens. And then the response will be different. There's no pre-recorded response. And this is I don't want to say training, but for lack of a better words, the training of the yoga is feeling that sense of flow, feeling this sense of, I can just trust my physical body, I can trust my mind, I can trust my heart, and I can trust that at my deepest level, I'm loving and intelligent. And that can be my ongoing guide. Okay, so let's come on up, please. And I was going to use the cat for the prop for this next thing, but he's still resting over there. So I'm going to leave him be, and we'll just use some blankets. So this next thing, if you could set this up the right way, it's so well worth it. Many of you have done this backward bend before, but this is one of my all-time favorite backward bends, and it just is magic for the lower back. So one of your blankets or towels is going to need to be rolled up. I rolled one up. Then you have the choice of using the small bolster, which works well. It's ideal really for this. Or if you don't have it, just fold the blanket so it replicates the small bolster. I'm going to try it with the small bolster. And then we're going to take one end of this folded blanket or small bolster and just put it over the roll. So just one end of it is touching the floor. So we're not putting it halfway or 3/4 of the way. We're just putting it over the roll so the end touches the floor. So this is where we're going to settle into the lumbar area. Then you may want to take something else for your head if need be, in case the neck feels a little bit strained, because we want the neck relaxed. So get a pillow or another towel for your neck. And then we'll sit on the floor. So whichever you're using, sit on the floor, keep the feet on the floor. I'm going to just tuck it in a little bit so it doesn't slide. And if you can see me, you can see how this is just going to mold to my lower back. Yeah, very good. And then go to the elbows first and make sure it's not too much. You can unfold this, you can unroll this if you need to, whatever you need to do, and then slowly let the body fold over it. Oh, yeah. So with the blanket, instead of the little bolster, I'm feeling it a little bit more intensely because I'm feeling that roll press through the blanket. It's not softening it, where the little bolster, I would prefer the little bolster, but I'll just stay with this. And then where's my pillow? Well, I have my pillow. Oh, here it is. So then once you settle the head down, see again, the blanket doesn't work as well for the head. So I would put something under my neck here. So my neck can relax and the full focus is on the lumbar area. And then the last thing to do is straighten out the legs. So buttock stays on the floor. We should have a nice conforming compression into the lumbar area. Very, very little, if anything, in the mid spine for this. So if nothing else, this is a nice reason to have the small bolster. For some reason, it just pads it more. And I mean, this will work with the blanket. And really, we can make any of these work with these blankets and pillows. It's fun actually to experiment with them a little bit, because again, it's just the compression is just evoking a variety of sensations in the body. So what we do here is just the range of what we can do, but you can put these bolsters or rolls or blankets or anything anywhere and just see what you experience. Again, it's the compression and then what that compression evokes, and then your willingness to be with that and listen to that. And in a way, beginning to understand this level of trust that I was talking about, it allows us to live in a way that we can just naturally drop a lot of our anxiety and our resistance to life. And this can be in sort of very practical, householder kind of ways, or even, the struggles that some of us, self-impose around our spiritual practice, that we have to let go, we have to surrender, we have to be here now, all of the things that we have, that have come upon us. So to be able to trust that we don't have to follow a prescription, that we're able to allow life its natural, organic unfolding, that it just does. And that we can check in in the most loving way, the most intelligent way we can, and then take the most appropriate action. And not to confuse this and not to make this into another technique. I'm not suggesting that you have to learn how to be loving and intelligent, that you have to cultivate more lovingness and intelligence. What I'm suggesting is this is who you are. This witness, this observer, this consciousness is loving and intelligent. So don't go looking for it. Don't try to do it better. Don't doubt this is what you are. Go into this sense of yourself. Go into this sense that is unchanging and expansive and infinite and conscious. You are conscious. This consciousness is intelligent. This consciousness is loving. And it's a very natural thing. It's not esoteric. It's not something we have to put a lot of effort into. It's a relaxing into our nature, our sense of self. This is the awakening to our sense of self, not our personality, not our ego self, not our self-image self, the reality of ourself. So anything that you're feeling, possibly in this lower back, but maybe feeling things elsewhere, see if you can allow your breathing to consciously weave into your awareness. Allow your awareness to consciously weave into your breathing. And then allow this awareness, this breath, to just soften into whatever you're feeling. So I'm not suggesting we breathe into it or push into it. I'm suggesting something much more gentle. Awareness and breath woven together, permeating whatever sensations you're having. And then let's put the feet on the floor and have a little movement. And you could bring the body back and bring the pelvis up on this little lump here, or you can just roll off of it. But either way, we'll just roll off of it, and we'll just take a moment here to soften up a bit, and we're going to continue. Good. So let's come on up and let's just open the legs nice and wide. So a nice, whatever your widest straddle is that you feel comfortable in the hips with. And we'll come forward here, either with or without bolstering. You know, sometimes the first couple of minutes, the bolster is nice just to see. Sometimes you want to stay with the bolster the whole time because this is going to keep you in a safe place at your range of motion. Other times you can just slide the bolster out, and if your body invites you to go deeper, you can go to your elbows or whatever your range of motion allows. So just come into this forward bend with the legs open. another thing about your body at this dynamic of being solid and fluid is this is a very, very interesting dynamic because it is based on patterns. So the way that your body starts to solidify, the way that your body is fluid, develops patterns. So there's all of these, there's energy patterns, there's physical patterns, there's information patterns. So one of the reasons that we hold these positions for rather lengthy times is because at the level of the fascia, and the fascia then is an interface of this solidity and this fluidity, in order to get into these patterns, it takes time. So this meshing, if you will, this matrix of the fascia, it's always in a state of flux between the solidity and the fluidity, and based on these patterns. So it doesn't often change quickly. So to go into it slowly, to hold, to relax, to compress, it takes time to then get into this, what we technically call the fascial barrier. So the barrier that is beginning to soften into, if you will, beneath these patterns. And sometimes we can feel them. Sometimes we can feel right at the edge of our awareness that there is a pattern, that there's something that wants to or needs to shift, and we can't quite get to it. So we attempt in this approach to not block that with the mechanism of the mind, to not block that with opinions or beliefs or diagnosis or assessments, but to simply feel it and to try to get in touch with our own patterns. And this is why it's so unique to you. All of your systems, your skeletal, your muscular, your fascial system, all of your patterns are unique to you. So how you work into these patterns, how you bring consciousness, how you bring this intelligence and love is a very unique process. So the asana itself is just the container. The yoga is just the container to do this kind of exploration.
Okay, so let's come on up from here. And let us
repeat that backward bend again. So the same thing, just a nice padding, small bolster or folded blanket over a roll. Second time, you may want to diminish it. You may want to make it a little bit higher. That would be up to you. And again, we'll sit in front of it. I'm going to use my little bolster this time because I prefer that. Yeah, see, this has that filling, more padding. So I'm not feeling the roll. I'm really just feeling the support and the compression of the bolster. And then just make sure your upper body is good. Do something for your head if you need or like. And then once the body feels stable and safe, then you can let the legs relax out. And we'll stay here about the same time. So make sure you're in a good position to relax. I also think that this awakening that yoga points to, and again at the level of trusting, is that we're alive in a system that doesn't need figuring out. And I think sometimes our our misdirection is in trying to figure something out. So we have many different modalities of how to be in this world and this life and this system. And they often present that there's something that needs to be figured out, even at a spiritual level, how to awaken, yes, how to be at peace, how to be happy. So what yoga is suggesting, what yoga is pointing to, is there's nothing to figure out, and how to remove oneself from this mindset, from this inner dialogue that I'm going to figure something out, that there is something to figure out. And just to be able to live, just to be able to allow your direct experience to unfold and appreciate the texture and the quality of your experiential field. And to realize at some point, it's all we have. What we're experiencing is all we have. And that is not something we have to figure out. So this discovery of the nature of the self is just so incredibly beautiful, and it's so simple. We are the love and intelligence. We are the happiness. We are the peace. The moment we go looking for it, the moment we try to figure it out, we've kind of circled back in on ourselves. We're looking for something that we already are. Silly, really. So at some point, when we begin to see this, or even just suspect this, we can stop taking or stop giving or taking away the power of the objects. And we see this, these lessons are abound, that the object or the situation or the person cannot make us happy, because we already are happiness. So when we start removing that power from the objects and the situations and the relationships, and just rest in our innate happiness, and then nothing wrong with objects and situations and relationships, but we use them then to celebrate, to express the happiness that we already are. And when I say the lessons are abound, because we all have this experience, we all have the experience of the very thing that made us happy. If we wait long enough, it starts to make us unhappy. And this happens over and over and over again. And what the yoga is suggesting is you are already that which you seek. You already are consciousness. You are already awareness. You are already happiness. You are already peaceful, loving, intelligent. And then express that. But don't give the objects, don't give the people, don't give the situations the power to make you happy or unhappy. Just be that, and then express that through your own individual personal creativity. This is the definition of awakening. We're awakening to something that we already are, something incredibly simple, but incredibly profound. Okay, so I think we'll come off of this. And again, you can, shimmy back a little bit, put the feet on the floor, elevate the hips, put the pelvis up on this. Sometimes that feels lovely. Other times it's nice just to, with the feet on the floor, roll off of it and curl up. And we'll take just a little bit of time here. We're going to do one more thing before we rest. So just make yourself comfortable. And again, the fetal position is nice here because it's a bit of a forward bend or child's position, something just mild to keep this back and forth movement going. And another, way to look at that is that ultimately, what we all really want, if we boil it down, is to be happy, is to be peaceful. So if we, want we want the new car, or we want the new job, or we want the new relationship, or we want more education, it's not these things that we want, it's how they make us feel. They make us feel good, happy. So what yoga is saying is find that happiness. It's as close to you as you're breathing. Find that awakened state of awareness where you are this wholeness. And then, yes, all of these things, all of these objects, all of these, they can be an expression of this love and happiness, but they will not give it to you because you already are that. Good. So let's come on back up from this backward bend, and let's bring the soles of the feet together for a nice gentle forward bend. And what I'm going to do is, when we're partway through this with the soles of the feet together, with this nice relaxed soft back, is I'm going to invite you to try to stay in it as much as possible, not to come all the way out, maybe come just a little bit out, just a sort of a releasing of the hips, and then straighten the legs a little bit past hip width and continue the forward bend this way. So this won't be the full straddle like we did the first time, but it'll just be sort of a continuation. So basically just open the legs out and come in, but we'll start with the soles of the feet together. And then if you need to or would like to open them sooner, you can, but let's just stay here for a bit and kind of soften in to this lumbar area after that lengthy backward bend. And what's really beautiful about all of this is that we get to explore this. It's almost like a game. It's almost like divine theater. Because we can gather all of the information and cultivate all the belief systems and take this person's word for it and this person's elevated philosophy. But when it comes right down to it, we get to explore this for ourselves. And this is what yoga is. Yoga is this container of stillness and silence for this self-inquiry. So at some point, the words and the philosophies and the mythologies and the belief systems, they're all just the maps. But at some point, we let go of the map and we meld into, we relax into, we feel into somatically the territory. What is it? What is this? Yes, I'm conscious. Yes, I'm aware. What is that? Yes, I have a relationship to objects and people and situations. And one moment I'm happy, the next moment I'm not. What is that? And we have a great capacity to explore this. And we don't have to do it in a serious and heavy-handed way. We can do it in a light and playful way, in that it's somewhat of a game. This is the trust that life is leading us exactly where we need to be.
So at this point, if you would like to, like I suggested earlier, to just come up for a bit or just a small amount, just unfold as much as you need to, just enough to open the legs out about a little bit, maybe the width of a mat, if you have a mat, or that approximate width for your hips, and then just go right back into the forward bend with the legs straight.
And this is what takes such great sensitivity and nuance and subtlety. This is really the what we're cultivating. If we're cultivating anything in our yoga, if we have any idea we're going to move deeper into our practice, it's not about technique or information. It's about becoming more subtle and more nuanced. Because what is it when we do start to drop the belief systems, when we start to drop the mythologies and the philosophies and the opinions of others, and just simply sit with our direct experience, just simply sit with the direct experience that we are conscious, and what do we observe that is appearing and disappearing in this consciousness that we are. And it takes great subtlety, it takes great stillness, because the mind is so patterned, the mind is so conditioned that it wants to immediately superimpose a belief system, a story, a habit, a pattern, a mythology, a philosophy. So to sit with ourselves as ourselves, this is what we're cultivating. This is why we sit quietly. This is why we contract and expand the body, so we can let the body settle. The flexibility and the openness we feel, it's just a benefit, a consequence of doing this. The positions are meant for us to cultivate quiet, stillness, and the capacity to allow it all to just sift into a moment of clarity.
Good. So let's come on up from here.
And this would be a good time to lie down and rest and integrate. Rest and integrate and contemplate. So keeping your body flat, keep your upper body right where it is. It's going to go into a half crescent moon, and just walk your heels over to the left, just as far as they'll go without letting that right hip roll up. So right hip stays down, legs go over, knees stay straight over to the left side. And then with that grounded, just bring your upper body over and keeping the right shoulder down. So we're not going to let the right shoulder is going to want to roll over. Don't let it. So you've just put your body flat on the floor, knees straight in this half crescent shape over to the left. Then if you'd like, you can bring the right arm up over the head, but allow the back of the hand or the arm to rest on the floor so it's not just dangling in the air. So you can kind of continue the shape of the crescent with the arm over the head. This will pull some of the intercostal muscles. And then if you'd like, you could also take that right ankle and put it over, at the ankles over the left ankle. So the right will go over the left. This, if you feel pulling, is typically the psoas. So again, try not to let that right hip roll up or the right shoulder roll over. So the body is, for all intents and purposes, flat. We're just in this nice shape. And this is just lovely. So we'll just relax here for a while. Oh. And so again, what we're really cultivating is we're cultivating this container of stillness and silence. This is where we do the self-inquiry from. This is where we do the observation from. And so what we want to look for, the balance that we're interested in is, how much noise is in the system. Because at some level, the tension becomes noise. Tension in the mind becomes noise. Tension in the physical body becomes noise. Noise in the environment. And so this is a balance that we want to explore. Do we have a balance between all of the noise in our system, in our nervous system, in our physicality, in our world? Do we have a balance with enough quiet, with enough time and space to quiet down and just look inwardly and see the powerful medicine that this witnessing, this observing, this quiet and silence actually really is. So if you have your ankle crossed, you could uncross your ankle at this point, and you could relax that arm up over the head and just shimmy the legs over, bring the body back to a straight spine. And when you feel ready, the same thing for the other side. You want to keep the upper body first grounded, walk the heels without bending the knees over to the right. Try not to let the left hip roll up this time. Keep the lower body there and just have to kind of work the upper body over, trying to keep the left shoulder down. Once you've got the shape, you can bring the left arm up over the head so the back of the hand is resting somewhere above the head, with the back of the hand on the floor works well. And then if you'd like to take that left leg over the right, twist the ankles, feel free to do that. All this chattering has reminded me of this definition of yoga from the Bhagavad Gita that I haven't thought about in a long time. It just came to me. It says that yoga is the practice of living with the consequences of being yourself. How lovely. So once again, if you do have that ankle crossed over, you can uncross your ankles and work your legs and your upper body, relax the arm up over the head, and just come back to a comfortable position. So at this point, your choice. I've not been putting separate time aside at the end for Shavasana, just so we have more time to be in our position. So you feel free to stay in relaxation as long as you would like. If you need any counter poses, feel free to continue. Or if you'd like to sit up with me and close, we can do so at this point. Yoga is the practice of living with the consequences of being yourself. Namaste.